In the digital archives of a Qatari intelligence agency, there exists a file that will never be made public. It contains a single image, a photograph of a crying woman, her face illuminated by the cold glow of a smartphone screen. The caption beneath it reads, "No one will know I'm here." This message, drafted in a moment of sheer terror, never reached its intended recipient. It remained trapped in the unsent folder of an encrypted messaging application, a digital ghost haunting the deleted files of a phone belonging to one of Qatar's most powerful figures. This is the story of Helga Peterson, a 30-year-old German fashion designer whose disappearance never made international headlines, whose case was quietly buried in the closed diplomatic channels and soundproofed offices where the secrets of the Middle Eastern elite are kept. Hey everyone, and a special welcome to my viewers across the USA. This is The Killer Next Door, the channel where we prove that the most dangerous monsters don't live in the shadows, they operate in plain sight, protected by power, wealth, and a perfect public image. Before we dive into a case that exposes the terrifying reality of what can happen when someone becomes the secret obsession of a billionaire, I need to know who's watching right now. This story hits differently when you realize this could happen to anyone who dreams of a better life. So, if you're watching from the States, drop a comment right now and tell me your name and your city. Are you in Chicago? Phoenix? Nashville? I read every single one, and I'll be giving a shout out to some of you in the next video. Let's build this community and show how far our reach really is. Now, if you think being a billionaire's personal designer sounds like a dream job, you need to hear the story of Helga Peterson. Now, you might have seen a headline or a short clip about this case before. But I'm telling you right now, you have not heard this story. What we've uncovered goes far beyond the surface, piecing together a chilling narrative of international espionage, satellite evidence, and a brother's relentless quest for justice that powerful people tried very hard to bury. This is the story of how the rich and powerful can make people disappear, and the one brother who refused to let his sister become just another secret. The first months of 2019 appeared to be a period of miraculous transformation for Helga Peterson. According to her closest friend Clara Meyer, it was as if Helga was suddenly living the script of a Hollywood film. A talented but relatively unknown fashion designer operating from a modest studio in Hamburg's Altona district. Helga had built her reputation on minimalist designs and intricate fabric textures. Yet despite her artistic vision, she struggled to break through in the oversaturated European fashion market. The combination of mounting financial pressures and creative stagnation had left her particularly vulnerable to offers that promised not just success, but deliverance. That deliverance appeared to arrive in February 2019, disguised as an email from the elite Swiss agency Global Elite Solutions. The agency presented itself as a concierge service for ultra-high-net-worth clients, though a private investigator later discovered its true specialty, sourcing companions for powerful men under the veil of complete confidentiality. With all contracts carefully structured to appear legitimate. The client who had specifically expressed interest in Helga was 47-year-old Sheikh Yusuf Al-Tamimi, a member of a cadet branch of Qatar's ruling family and a major player in the global liquefied natural gas market. His personal fortune was conservatively estimated in the billions. The initial approach came through a polished agency representative who presented Helga with what seemed like a career-defining opportunity to become the personal style consultant and wardrobe designer for a Middle Eastern tycoon with essentially unlimited resources. The offer included her own design studio in Doha, access to the world's rarest textiles and materials, and full financial backing for her own fashion collection. After several carefully orchestrated video calls where Yusuf Al-Tamimi presented himself as a charming, Western-educated patron of the arts deeply appreciative of Helga's talent, she agreed to meet him in person in Paris. What followed was a courtship designed to overwhelm and disarm. Yusuf rented her a penthouse suite at the legendary George V Hotel, gifted her vintage Cartier jewelry, and presented her with rare, first-edition books on costume history. He spoke endlessly about her genius, painting a future where she would reign as a fashion icon, completely liberated from financial constraints. Notably, he made no romantic advances, carefully cultivating his image as a sophisticated benefactor captivated solely by her artistic brilliance. Helga's family, particularly her older brother Thomas, watched this unfolding fairy tale with deepening concern. Thomas was alarmed by the rapid pace of events and the opaque nature of the Sheikh's background. Yet Helga, dazzled by the prospects and scale of the opportunity, dismissed these warnings as provincial caution. In early March 2019, she signed a 120-page contract with the Cypriot Shell Company. The document not only outlined her professional duties but contained extensive confidentiality clauses and effectively transferred control over her movements and communications to her employer. By mid-March, Helga had left Hamburg, telling her family she was traveling to Doha to begin work on her dream project. Her new home was a villa within the West Bay Lagoon, a gated luxury complex on an artificial island off the coast of Doha. The compound was a fortress of privacy, a maze of palatial homes separated by high walls, with private beaches and 24/7 security. Entry was impossible without resident authorization. For the first few weeks, Helga's life mirrored the promised fantasy. The Sheikh provided a full staff of servants, a personal driver, and unlimited spending capability. She regularly sent her family photographs from five-star restaurants, luxury boutiques, and the deck of a private yacht. However, a later analysis of these communications by cybersecurity experts revealed subtle signs of distress. She mentioned she was rarely alone, constantly shadowed by bodyguards, and that her new phone, a gift from Yusuf, seemed to malfunction at curious times, with messages failing to send and calls unexpectedly disconnecting. By late April, the tone of her correspondence had shifted dramatically. She wrote of exhaustion, noting that work on her collection had yet to begin. Her days had been reduced to attending social functions where she served as little more than a decorative accessory. She described a life of total surveillance. The Sheikh monitored her calls, read her messages, and flew into rage if she attempted to contact male friends back in Germany. The promised paradise had revealed itself to be a gilded cage with no visible means of escape. The final phone call to her brother Thomas occurred in early May. Helga spoke in a terrified whisper, confessing she had made a terrible mistake and desperately wanted to come home but saw no way out. She revealed that Yusuf was holding her passport and personal documents. The following day, her phone went dead. All attempts by her family to contact her through Global Elite Solutions were met with silence. A week later, agency representatives coldly informed them that Ms. Peterson had voluntarily terminated her contract and left Qatar for an unknown destination. In mid-May 2019, the Peterson family filed an official missing persons report with Hamburg police. German authorities subsequently submitted requests through Interpol channels, but the investigation quickly hit a wall. Qatari authorities proved reluctant to cooperate, citing national sovereignty and a lack of evidence that any crime had occurred on their soil. Sheikh Yusuf al-Tamimi's status and influence rendered him virtually untouchable within his own country's legal system. To the outside world, Helga Peterson had simply vanished. The Peterson family entered what can only be described as a state of bureaucratic purgatory. Official channels produced nothing but carefully worded expressions of concern from the German Foreign Ministry, coupled with reminders about the need to respect diplomatic protocols. The Qatari embassy in Berlin issued a terse statement confirming that German citizen Helga Peterson had entered the country on a private invitation and subsequently departed, according to border control records. They refused to provide copies of these records, citing privacy laws. Every formal request from German investigators via Interpol went unanswered. The family was trapped in a jurisdictional void. For Germany, the crime, if any, occurred abroad. For Qatar, there was no crime at all. Yusuf al-Tamimi remained protected by an impenetrable fortress of legal teams and diplomatic immunity. Thomas Peterson refused to surrender to this institutional silence. He took indefinite leave from his job and dedicated himself entirely to finding his sister. He created a website detailing her disappearance and attempted to interest major media outlets, but prominent publications consistently declined to run stories making serious allegations against a member of Qatar's ruling family without concrete evidence. By August 2019, having exhausted all conventional avenues, Thomas turned to the private sector. He hired Berlin-based Fortitudo Security, headed by Daniel Fischer, a former operative with Germany's Federal Intelligence Service. Fischer specialized in exactly these types of cases, those too diplomatically sensitive or complex for government agencies to handle effectively, including international kidnappings, corporate espionage, and overseas missing persons cases. After reviewing the Peterson family's materials, Fischer immediately grasped the magnitude of the challenge. A direct investigation inside Qatar was impossible. Any suspicious activity by a foreign agent would lead to immediate arrest and potentially an international incident. The only viable approach was remote intelligence gathering, piecing together information from both open and closed sources. Fischer's initial weeks were spent constructing a detailed psychological and biographical profile of Sheikh Yusuf al-Tamimi. The public persona, an Oxford-educated, enlightened art patron and connoisseur of European culture, stood in stark contrast to the information Fischer began uncovering through his shadow networks. He identified a disturbing pattern. Over the preceding decade, at least 4 other young women from Europe and North America connected to al-Tamimi had disappeared under eerily similar circumstances. The list included a French model, a Canadian art student, and a British gallery owner. In each case, the narrative followed the same arc. The Sheikh would charm the woman, promise to champion her career, bring her to Doha, and then, after several months, she would vanish. Their families subsequently received generous financial settlements via offshore accounts in exchange for signing comprehensive non-disclosure agreements. None of these cases ever reached law enforcement. It was a perfectly engineered system where human lives were merely line items in a budget. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. While monitoring social media and expatriate forums related to Qatar, Fischer's team discovered a post from a woman using a pseudonym. She wrote vaguely about horrific working conditions at a West Bay Lagoon villa and made a cryptic reference to a German designer. It took weeks of painstaking work to identify the author, a Filipino domestic worker named Rosalind Santos, who had been employed at the al-Tamimi residence and was abruptly dismissed in late May 2019, shortly after Helga's disappearance. Fischer located Rosalind in a Manila suburb. She was living in constant fear, having been forced by the Sheikh's security team to sign non-disclosure documents upon her dismissal, with explicit threats made against her family in the Philippines. Convincing her to talk required Fischer to guarantee her and her family's relocation to Europe under a witness protection program, leveraging his old government connections. Rosalind's testimony provided the crucial missing pieces. She confirmed that in her final weeks at the villa, Helga was deeply depressed and locked in constant conflict with the Sheikh, who had forbidden her from using the internet and confiscated her German mobile phone. According to Rosalind, the final confrontation occurred on the night of May 3rd. Helga had accused Yusuf of being a liar and her jailer, vowing to report everything to the German embassy. The Sheikh, who had been drinking heavily, erupted in fury. Rosalind heard screaming, the sound of impacts, and then a heavy, dull thud, as if a weight had hit the floor, followed by an unnerving silence. The next morning, The staff was informed that Mrs. Peterson had departed suddenly due to a family emergency. Yet no one saw her leave, nor did any vehicle arrive to transport her to the airport. Most ominously, Rosalind noted that Helga's large suitcases remained in her dressing room. The most chilling detail emerged when Rosalind described events the day after Helga's alleged departure. A team of gardeners, unfamiliar to the regular staff, arrived at the villa. They worked through the night in the farthest corner of the garden, near a large Italian marble lion statue, using a small excavator. By morning, the area had been freshly dug and covered with new sod. Rosalind was certain something had been buried there that night. This testimony transformed the case, but presented Fisher and the Peterson family with an impossible dilemma. They now had a credible location for Helga's possible remains, but no legal means to access it. Any attempt to secure a search warrant for Sheikh Al-Tamimi's villa based on a single witness's testimony would fail spectacularly. Furthermore, revealing their source would place Rosalind in mortal danger. Qatari security services, known for their efficiency, would undoubtedly silence her permanently. Fisher understood that a direct assault was not only futile but would destroy any chance for justice. They needed to engineer a situation where the discovery of evidence appeared accidental, forcing the system to work against itself. The new strategy involved creating an irrefutable, confidential dossier, not merely a report, but a weapon designed for the highest levels of German diplomacy. It included a comprehensive biography of the Sheikh, highlighting his predatory patterns, detailed analysis of the previous disappearances, documentation of the financial structures used to purchase silence, a fully notarized transcript of Rosalind Santos's testimony. A crucial component was a technical report from a satellite imagery analyst hired by Fisher. Comparing archival images of the West Bay Lagoon Villa from April and late May 2019, the expert identified clear evidence of soil disturbance in the exact area Rosalind had described. The May images showed a distinct rectangular patch differing in color and texture from the surrounding earth, undeniable proof of recent excavation. Armed with this dossier, Fisher used his connections to arrange a discreet meeting with a senior official in the German Foreign Ministry's Middle East Department. The reaction was cautious to the point of apprehension. A confrontation with Qatar, a critical supplier of Germany's liquefied natural gas, risked a major diplomatic and energy crisis. However, the evidence, particularly the witness testimony corroborated by satellite imagery, was too compelling to ignore. While the German government couldn't launch an official investigation, it could employ back-channel pressure. The German ambassador in Doha received encrypted instructions to apply subtle leverage. At a routine meeting with Qatari Foreign Ministry officials, the ambassador casually mentioned the Peterson case, noting that questions were mounting in Berlin and that such matters could unfortunately impact the investment climate if not satisfactorily resolved. The Sheikh's name went unmentioned, but the message was unmistakable. Simultaneously, Fisher's team maintained around-the-clock surveillance on all of the Sheikh's activities. Their systematic work paid off when they discovered a substantial landscaping contract for the Al-Tamimi Villa in West Bay Lagoon, scheduled for November 2019. The project included installing a new swimming pool and completely redesigning the garden area where the lion statue stood. The Sheikh, in his endless pursuit of status and luxury, was constantly remodeling his properties. His supreme confidence in his own impunity had likely made him careless about the secret buried in his garden. This information provided the final leverage. The German ambassador received new instructions. At his next meeting, he raised the Peterson case again, mentioning, based on unverified intelligence, that her disappearance might have been violent and that her remains could still be in Qatar. This was a calculated gambit. Germany wasn't making a direct accusation, but was signaling it possessed specific information and warning that any accidental discovery would be scrutinized intensely. The goal was to pressure Qatari authorities to prevent the Sheikh from destroying evidence. On November 22, 2019, a team of Pakistani and Nepalese workers began the garden renovation. The Sheikh was conveniently abroad on business in London. Around 4 p.m., the bucket of a small excavator digging the foundation for the new pool struck a solid object. Workers clearing the soil discovered a large bundle of thick black polyethylene, meticulously wrapped with reinforced tape. The site foreman, recognizing the gravity of the situation, immediately contacted local police rather than the villa's private security. Patrol officers cordoned off the area and transported the package unopened to Doha's central morgue. News of human remains discovered at a royal family member's villa reached the highest levels of Qatari leadership instantly. At this critical moment, German diplomacy struck. The German embassy delivered a formal note demanding that their representatives be permitted to observe the identification process and have access to the investigation, citing strong reasons to believe the remains belonged to their missing citizen, Helga Peterson. The trap had been perfectly sprung. Concealing the discovery or falsifying results was now impossible under international scrutiny. The subsequent forensic examination became a quiet battleground between Qatari officials seeking to maintain control and German authorities insisting on transparency. Under unprecedented diplomatic pressure, Qatari authorities permitted Dr. Klaus Richter, a forensic anthropologist from Germany's Federal Criminal Police Office, to join the examination as an official observer. His presence eliminated any possibility of evidence tampering. The findings were unequivocal. The remains belonged to a Caucasian female aged 25 to 35. Cause of death was multiple skull fractures from a heavy blunt object, combined with asphyxiation from a fractured hide bone. Time of death coincided precisely with Helga's disappearance. Fabric fragments found with the body were identified as silk from a Givenchy dress identical to one Helga wore in her final photograph from Doha. Definitive proof came from genetic analysis. Bone tissue samples sent to Germany matched 100% with DNA from Helga's parents. On December 28, 2019, Qatari authorities formally notified the German embassy that the remains found at the West Bay Lagoon villa had been identified as Helga Peterson. Sheikh Yusuf Al-Tamimi was detained upon his return from London, though his detention bore no resemblance to standard procedure. He was placed not in a cell but under luxurious house arrest at a family palace, immediately surrounded by a team of elite international lawyers. His defense strategy was predictable: complete denial and shifting blame. He professed shock and devastation, claiming to have loved Helga and insisting she had left Qatar after a minor disagreement. His legal team advanced a theory that business or political rivals had murdered Helga elsewhere and planted her body on his property to frame him. This defense collapsed when Qatari investigators, working under German oversight, recovered deleted data from the Sheikh's primary phone. Among terabytes of information, they discovered the crucial file. A selfie taken with the front camera on the evening of May 2, 2019. It showed Helga Peterson's tear-streaked face, with the unsent message clearly visible in a messaging application. "No one will know I'm here." Metadata confirmed the image was taken in her villa bedroom, proving she was there against her will and in mortal fear at the time of her disappearance. A public trial of a royal family member was unthinkable. The damage to Qatar's reputation and potential political destabilization would be catastrophic. The solution emerged from the region's tradition of closed justice. In February 2020, a secret Sharia court session found Yusuf Al-Tamimi guilty of murder, rather than execution or state imprisonment. He received life confinement in a remote government residence. He was stripped of all business assets and erased from official records, ceasing to exist publicly. For a man of his status, this represented the ultimate punishment. Helga Peterson's remains were returned to her family in March 2020 and buried in a quiet cemetery near Hamburg. No official apology or admission of guilt ever came from Qatari authorities, though the family received substantial financial compensation through Swiss banking channels. Rosalind Santos and her family were successfully resettled in Germany with new identities and political asylum. The story of Helga Peterson remains one of the countless untold tragedies that occur behind palace walls, where absolute power creates an environment where fairy tales can transform into fatal traps. And where justice, when it comes at all, wears a hidden face. Now, you might have seen a headline or a short clip about this case before. But I'm telling you right now, you have not heard this story. What we've uncovered goes far beyond the surface, piecing together a chilling narrative of international espionage, satellite evidence, and a brother's relentless quest for justice that powerful people tried very hard to bury. And so, Helga Peterson's story ends not with a public trial, but with a quiet burial in Germany and a billionaire living in gilded confinement. It's a stark reminder that the rules are different for the ultra-wealthy, whether they're in Qatar, New York, or LA. The killer isn't always the stranger in the alley. Sometimes, it's the charming benefactor who offers you everything you've ever wanted. This is exactly what we investigate here on The Killer Next Door, the shocking crimes that happen behind closed doors in the world's most exclusive neighborhoods. If this investigation into power, corruption, and one family's fight for justice has you hooked, then you're in the right place. Here's what I need you to do right now. 1. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We break down cases like this every week, and you don't want to miss our next video where we'll be shouting out viewers from cities like yours all across America. 2. Second, I want to hear from you in the comments. What shocked you most about this case? The elaborate setup? The diplomatic cover-up? Or the brother who never gave up? 3. Finally, share this with one person who needs to see it. The more people who understand how these predators operate, the harder it is for them to get away with it. Thank you for watching, for caring about justice, and for being part of this growing community. Stay aware, stay safe, and remember, the most dangerous secrets are often hiding in the last place you'd ever suspect. I'll see you in the next investigation.